I have a guest today who has just an incredible concept, really born out of a love for law enforcement, a love for the profession, and really a love for this country. And so I really thought you needed to meet her and hear how this all began. Megan Stockburger, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So you are the co-founder of the National Law Enforcement Officers Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
Wow, that just sounds amazing. So talk about how this was born.
sure. My co-founder and I, Adam Davenport, went to high school together. And I was looking for what I'm going to do after college. And I started having a family, and he was already running a Hall of Fame program for entrepreneurs. And so I started my own event planning business, and we were planning this event together, the Entrepreneurial Business Excellence Hall of Fame. And my dad is a retired law enforcement officer, and he attended the event in 2016. And he looked at me and he goes, "Why aren't you doing this for law enforcement?" And I said, "I don't know, Dad. I don't know. Someone has to be, right?" So I went back, and Adam and I looked, and we realized no one was doing anything like this and thought that was kind of crazy. So we started small with a local lunch in Northwest Ohio, and it had about 60 people and just officers from the Ohio area nominated. And it really took off at that first lunch. And we had some people from the industry attend, and they said, "You really need to take this national." And of course, we were like, how do we do that? Like, where do we begin? And all we did was kind of put out a call for nominations across the country, and they started pouring in. And we realized there actually is a need for this. So fast forward to last year, we became a nonprofit to better serve our law enforcement officers, because the main goal is just to support them in any way we can, but to get those positive stories out there. So that's kind of like the little background of the Hall of Fame and where we're at today.
So there's one thing I've got to address before we talk about the Hall of Fame. So you're a cop's kid.
Right.
Talk about what that was like growing up.
Absolutely. So it's changed a lot over the years, my relationship with my dad, I will say that. When I was younger, it was a lot different. It was more of the, "Shh, be quiet, dad's sleeping." And if I didn't tell him, "Be careful and I love you," before he left, I thought something bad would happen. It was more of the, he had to learn how to deal with us kids, my sister and I, separately from how he dealt with the people on the streets. And that is a hard thing to learn. And once I got older, I understood it better. So it was less of me being angry at him for, like, simple arguments. He just wanted to protect me and keep me safe from what he saw out there in the streets. But that led to a teenage girl and her dad butting heads left and right. Until we got older, we actually went to therapy together, and he learned the tools to deal with how to separate the job from his family, which is not easy, as you know. And I learned to understand where he was coming from a bit more and to be a little bit more relaxed. And so that's carried over in our relationship over the years. We're very much alike, so we butt heads anyway, but you do have that. It's kind of a strange dynamic. You love them, you're so proud of them, but then being a cop's daughter and dating a guy isn't the easiest either. And things like that, you adjust, but our relationship has come so far. And obviously he gave me, the guts to do something like this program and has guided me through it along the way. So I'd say that our relationship has come so far, but I understand what a lot of people go through.
It is. Police parenting is very different, and as my kids have told me, being a cop's kid is also very difficult. And that's, you bring up such a great point. I'm glad you're open about it. That
Yeah,
very often we need professionals to help us, navigate all of those situations. I know a lot of retired police officers who really have no contact with their adult kids because of exactly what you just
right.
explained. It's
Yeah.
extraordinary.
It's that lack of communication that you don't know how to say to your children or your parent how you feel about what's going on. This isn't a normal job. I mean, we had to go through things where I will remember this one tornado Sunday in Ohio. It was in the summer. We had tornadoes left and right. And finally, the sun's coming out, it's clearing. My mom's baking cookies, and two uniform officers come up to the door.
Oh.
And that's not like anything good. And so I just kind of stood there in shock for a minute. And then I called my mom and they don't say anything. Is he shot? Is he dead, alive? They just took her in the cop car and then a neighbor came over and visited. He was in a car accident, a pretty bad one, but she gets there and he's joking with the nurses. Yet we're still at home thinking he could be dead. She thought he was dead the whole time going there. That mental like warfare that goes on in your head that's just one example of what we went through in his 30-year career. I can't imagine what you and your family did too. And so it's that communication where I'm not mad at you because you're doing something wrong. I'm just trying to protect you. And then I have to say, you have to understand that you've raised me right. I'm going to be okay because you've instilled the good principles in me. So it's a balance for sure.
It absolutely is. And obviously your pride in the profession has bled through into what you're doing now. And I've got to ask, what was it like to decide to co-found the National Law Enforcement Officers Hall of Fame at a time when the American law enforcement officer is being so demonized and vilified, and we're being told that cops are racist and cops are bad and this and that. What was that like?
Oh, well, that just fueled my fire even more. That's what that did. I'm looking at these men and women risking their lives every single day for someone else. And my favorite saying growing up was everybody hates a cop until they need one. And it honestly just fueled it further. We had a couple of instances that were hard for us during 2020 and 2021 where we did not hold the events. And the reason for that, not we didn't want to back down from it. 2020 was COVID and we didn't have a choice. 2021, we were getting death threats for who we represented. And we're not going to put our officers at risk. However, when I would get these phone calls from news outlets asking me how I felt about what was going on, it doesn't factor into what we're doing. That's what I say. What I'm doing is supporting those 99% of law enforcement officers who are out there doing the good. And Adam and I wanted to tell those positive stories. So basically, bring it on is what we say. It fuels our fire because I know the good that's out there. And so why are we focusing on the negative just to sell clickbait? I don't know.
Right. And that's the thing, that we look back now 4 years back, and the false narrative that was propagated in this country and frankly around the world, that somehow the American law enforcement officer is the problem in this country. It was amazing. And now, we look at it now, everybody now realizes, or I think most people realize, that it's not the American law enforcement officer is the problem. And now we have extraordinary crime. No crime is not going down.
Nope.
It's just the crime is not getting reported, so the statistics go down. And now people are starting to realize that they really, just like you said, that they really do need law enforcement out there. And we are in a recruiting crisis, a retention crisis. So I'm imagining that what you and Adam are doing really helps morale of the officers and the agencies involved. Talk about that.
Yes. So, I mean, kind of what you're going along with what officers are facing in the country right now. I think it starts at the top with leadership. We have to have leaders in place that want to stick up for law enforcement and their officers on the department. And so we kind of are that voice when they're not being heard. We are able to tell those positive stories. We're able to express what these officers are going through. And we just met an officer who was falsely accused, was shot in the line of duty, and yet he was the one fired. You know what I mean? Because it was the time of the year with all of the drama surrounding officers and being against them, that he was automatically blacklisted from his community, his department, without even getting a say. disgusting to me. And that's why we have to fight and keep being positive and keep putting the good stories out. And what we will hear from our officers is, we don't need this. We know we don't deserve it. We don't do the job for this, but thank you. And I said, it's turning now where they're like, you know what, we actually do deserve to get recognized for what we're doing. They'll never admit that, but it's appreciated. And you see it in their faces and in that room at our event where everyone's crying or happy or laughing, and the camaraderie and knowing that everyone in this organization that's part of this family has your back. I think that's got to help.
Oh, absolutely. So talk about the events that you organize and hold.
Sure. So we do the induction ceremony every year, and that works by getting nominations. We send out a press release across the country. Anyone can be nominated that is current, retired, or posthumously. We have different award categories. Last year, we introduced the K9 Award, which is so needed to support the canines and their officers. And that meant a lot to us. But the nominations come in, and a anonymous judges panel of law enforcement officers, retired, present, will categorize them. And it's not an easy task. I wouldn't want to be the one picking these winners because they all deserve it. And then we have actually next year, our ceremony will be April 11th in Fort Worth, Texas at the Omni. And that's when their stories are told. We honor the officers that have passed the past year, which unfortunately the list grows longer and longer every year. And we celebrate the acts of heroism from these officers, and just they get to hang out with each other from across the country. And so this ceremony really brings people together. And then next year, we're going to have the booths and hopefully some training and some breakout sessions with mental health, because that'll be our next program we launch, is free and anonymous mental health care for law enforcement.
So I want to talk about that for a minute, because that is something so needed, as you know, growing up with a cop. Um, what's your vision for that, for helping police officers with their mental health? And are you going to involve families?
Yes. So most importantly, families, because that's where my passion lies in law enforcement family, you know, what we talked about earlier. So what we want it to be more so is we connect with the best of the best in the first responder world. These need to be, you know, therapists that work with just law enforcement. And it's very specific. Firefighting is different. EMS is different than law enforcement. You're seeing domestics, car accidents, murders. You do it all. You're saving babies. You need a person that knows what that is like. So basically, that's who we want to align ourselves with, as companies or organizations like that. So an officer or a wife of an officer or a child, whatever that may be, can call us and say, hey, I'm really struggling with my husband right now. He's kind of taking the job out on me. We're distant. You know, is there anything we can do? And we've met so many great people where we can say, hey, you can go to this retreat here. We're going to cover it. That's what we want to raise the money for. And then you go get better. No one needs to know you're doing it, and you don't have to worry about paying for it. But they're getting the specialized care they need from the right people.
That is absolutely extraordinary. I love that. Um, so tell me what the categories are for induction. I keep thinking about, when you say Hall of Fame, I'm thinking about Rock and Roll Hall of Fame,
Well,
NFL
you know, it
Hall of
should
Fame,
be that
all
big,
that.
right? We should be having our ceremony televised, and I can't wait till we have a brick and mortar for these officers. But actually, Tom Smith, who you know, Detective Tom Smith, NYP, retired from Gold Shields, he won our Lifetime Achievement Award last year. And I want to explain kind of like that category means to us someone that goes above and beyond in the career and outside of the career. It's not just going into work for your 9 to 5 shift or whatever, not that they're ever 9 to 5, but it is what you do outside and how you treat other people. Then we have, like I said, the K9 Award. We have a Partners in Service Award where we awarded to 2 officers from 2 different departments in Massachusetts. They formed Leo Support Foundation, where they supply smaller departments with life-saving kits. It's incredible what some of these officers are doing that nobody knows about. Johnny Castro, for example, he paints all the portraits of the fallen officers, and we showcase them at our event, but we honored him for his work. He doesn't have to do that and his job and everything else. He does that on his own time. So it's different categories like that where we're showcasing people and what they do in their jobs and what they do outside of their jobs and their acceptance in the community. And it's very important that we keep expanding on that. We're going to look into someone in the media that supports law enforcement because it's very rare to find. And so that is kind of our next category for next year that we're introducing. And those are basically like the main ones besides your distinguished service and career achievement.
What is the response of the families, when you have the event and you give out the awards and things like that, from a family perspective, from a kid perspective? What do you see as far as the response goes?
The families are just as honored, if not more, I think, than the officers because it is a recognition for them as well. And when these officers that do win and get up on stage, they're thanking their families more than anything. And for them to hear, oh, wow, they really do see that I'm sacrificing at home too, while they're out there risking their lives. But I think it's a good, you know, bridge to that relationship with families and the job because they're hearing all these stories from other officers in the room that night as well.
You know, I want to go back to one thing that we talked about. You talked about what it was like, in the heyday of 2020 and 2021, and you guys were getting death threats and things like that. I don't think people really understand the vitriol that a lot of us experienced during that time. Were you shocked by that?
I wanna say I was shocked by it, but I'm not anymore because of the way I grew up. Now I will say someone that didn't grow up with a dad as a police officer might have been shocked, but I spent most of my childhood with knowing that there are certain people that have this distaste for law enforcement. What upset me was the level that it was taken. There was no longer treating law enforcement like they were human beings. They were all wrong, and it that is what I was blown away by, where you lose the human part of it. Do you think that they want to hurt anyone? Do you think people go into this job thinking, "I hope I don't have to," or, "I hope I get to shoot someone today?"
Right.
No. And it's like, if people would just think for themselves, they would understand how it's important to support our law enforcement, that they're here to support us, that they're leaving their families for us. They don't need to do that. And as you've seen the decline, people are kind of getting away from it because they're afraid of the way they're being perceived. But I'm seeing the turn, and I think you are too, where people are realizing law enforcement, we're not the bad guys. You need to focus on the good. And yes, those
Mhm.
people that do the wrong need to be dealt with, but let's show them appreciation for them risking and sacrificing their lives every day.
That's so well said, Megan. What do you say to people who say, "Hey, they're just doing their job. They get paid to get shot. They get paid to do all these to save people's lives." Now, what do you say to those people?
Well, that is one of my frustrating things when people say that, well, it's their job. Okay, well then why aren't you doing it? You go do it then. If it's so easy and not that big of a deal, go on a ride along, actually. I would just like someone to go on a ride along in an inner city one day and experience what they experience and the slurs that are slung at them, the the disrespect, even when they're going to help on a call. Just go on a ride along, and then you come back and tell me if you would sign up and get paid for just a job.
Right. Yeah, again, very well said. So, this isn't free, right?
No.
So what do you do as far as first of all to get the word out, and secondly, what do you do as far as fundraising? How do you make this thing go every single year?
Well, it's people like you that, want to help spread our story. That's the best part is we used to think when we first started this that if we weren't in the mainstream media, no one was going to know about us and we weren't going to spread. Well, the thing is, we want to grow within the industry that we represent. So people like talking with people like you, getting people that support law enforcement, such as Gulls, the NRA, those companies that already support law enforcement in general. That's our family. Those are our types of people. However, it isn't easy. Adam and I do not take a paycheck. We are trying our hardest to build this up and support, but like we've talked about this whole discussion, it's not an easy organization to represent just because it's law enforcement, which is such a shame and doesn't make any sense. But you can go to our website. We have raffles all the time. We have a nice Leo Henry raffle right now that's custom and it's beautiful on our website. But just go to our website, nationalleo.hall-of-fame.com, and you can get all the details of the winners, when the next events are, the fundraisers, donate, whatever you can do to help us so we can help law enforcement.
And how do people nominate a law enforcement officer in their life?
Directly on our website, you'll go and you'll fill out a form and it has a place for you to write the story. Then you'll be contacted and we'll get the follow-up relevant news stories, contact the department, get awards, and we'll do all the legwork after you fill out the nomination.
Megan, do you see the tide turning as far as the attitude nationally toward the American law enforcement officer?
I do. I'd like to see it turn a little bit quicker than it has been, but over the past 4 years, we've come a long way, I feel. And I think that our voices are starting to be heard.
Now, are you guys on social media too?
Yes, Facebook, Instagram, National LEO HOF, Twitter or X as they call it now, LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn and I post everything about the Hall of Fame there under my name.
I really see it growing and growing. Is that your vision as well?
Yes, I want it to make sure where we're doing regional Hall of Fame induction ceremonies with one big national one where we have a brick and mortar building. And so I want everyone to hear these stories as far and as wide as we can reach.
I love it. I got to tell you, Megan Stockburger, this is such an amazing concept. And you and Adam are so incredibly selfless for doing what you do to bring this concept to the forefront. I just, as a retired law enforcement officer, I just think back, even 20 years, like, wow, this would have been so extraordinary. So we're so grateful that you spent some time with us today. And if you'd like more information about the National Police Association, visit us at nationalpolice.org.
Are you passionate about supporting law enforcement? The National Police Association is on a mission to strengthen our communities, protect our families, and ensure justice prevails. But they need your help. Every dollar you donate makes a difference. It funds the legal defense of police officers and police agencies, supports advocacy for pro-law enforcement legislation, and funds community outreach programs and education. Imagine safer streets, stronger bonds between officers and neighborhoods, and a brighter future for all. Join us. Visit our website at nationalpolice.org to donate today.